Welcome back, friends. We are going to continue with our secret messages project. In the last video, we saw how we can use indexing to get individual elements of this string. Let's say we have a bigger goal in mind and we want to get not just one element at a time, but in fact, we want to get a substring from a given string, which means that, for example, I might want to get, say, the first three letters of this string at once, in a separate string. Now, one thought that might come to your mind is that it's okay, I can use indexing, so I can first get this element, and this element, and somehow join them. But it turns out that to do this, we have a smarter method of doing it, which is called slicing. In this video, we're going to look at what slicing is and look at the basic structure of the slicing statement and also look at a lot of examples so that things become clear for you. As I said, if we want to create substrings with more than one character, we have to use string slicing. Now, there is a basic format to the slicing statement which is shown below. So I'm going to show you this statement first, and then we'll see a lot of examples. Let's say X was the main string, the string that we had, to start with. If I want to get a new string, X new, let's call it X new, I'm going to use a slicing statement, and that's given by X square bracket start index colon stop index colon step size. Now, what do I mean by this? Remember, indices we have seen before go from 0 onwards or say -1 backwards. Let's talk about the positive side. So 0 onwards. Start index tells where I want to start, right? So for example, if I say start 0, that means I start in the beginning. If I say start at 5, that means I'm going to start at the sixth character, because remember, counting starts from 0. So 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's where I'll start. Stop index tells you where you must stop, but it turns out that we stop before this index, and this part is important. I'll illustrate this with examples later. And the step size tells us in what kind of steps should I go. Now, to make all this clear, it's always best to use examples. It just makes it more clear, and that's what I'm going to do. So remember here so let me just run this again so the console clears up. So I have this string called Python is cool. Let's say I want to slice this, and I do that by saying x0 5 say 1. Now, in this, we are telling the interpreter to start at 0 because 0 is my starting index. My end index is 5, which means it will end, in fact, at 4. And I'm going to go at step of 1, right? So what's going to happen is that I'm going to get a string called Python because it started at 0. So it's 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. Now it stopped at 4 because remember the stop index, I mean the indexing, the substring stops before the end index. So end index was 5 here, and hence I'm stopping at at O here because it's a 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. Let's take one more example. Let's say I said say for example say 2 till say 8 in steps of 1, right? So here I'm telling, hey, start at 2, which means I'm going to start at 2. I'm going to go until, so I'm going to go 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. Remember, because the end index is 8, so I'm going to go until 7. And I'm expecting I'm going to go in steps of 1. So I'm expecting a string called thon space I. And that's in fact exactly what we get. So notice thon space I. Let's take one more example. Let's say I did go from say 2 until say 12 in steps of 2. Now, steps of 2 because I made it 2 here. So what's going to happen here, right? I'm expecting elements 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. I will not get anything beyond because remember the indexing will stop before the end index and the step is 12, right? The step is 2. So which means once I go 10 plus 2, it's 12. So I'm not going to use that, right? So if I did this, I'm going to get 2 space SC. And why did that come? Let's just try to understand. Remember the starting point is 2. So 0, 1, 2. So T, 3, 4. Steps of 2, remember. So I get an O. Then I get a space, which is, 6, 7, 8, which is S. Then I get a space and C, which is 10. X of 10 is indeed C, and it'll stop here because remember the end index given is 12 and the indexing stops before the end index is reached. Before I go, before I wrap this up, I want to highlight something interesting, that when we write code, in fact, we can choose not to provide all three of these values, right? But we must, of course, provide at least one value, because otherwise it's meaningless. Let's just see examples of this, right? Let's say I do not provide, say, the step size, right? So let's say I just do this here, and I say instead of step size, I just leave it empty. I say 2 colon 12 colon nothing there. Now, if I do this, if I do not provide, which means if I do not provide a step size, the default step size taken is 1, right? So I'm going to get, for example, thon is co, and that's because started on 2, so thon is co. And this time round, because remember the step size was 1, so I also got index number 11, because the ending index was still 12, right? So it went from 2 until 11 because step size became 1. Let's see what happens if I do not also provide the starting index, right? If I do not provide the starting index and my step size is not provided, which means it is positive, which is 1, I'm going to start from a logical point, which is that I'm going to start from the very beginning. So which means that if my step size is not provided, or it is provided as a positive number, my start, if I do not provide it, the default value becomes 0, which is logical because it's telling that, okay, let's start from the very beginning. And hence I get Python is co, right? And I get, because, remember 0 is P, so I get this entire string until until say item number 11. So 0 until 11 is what I've gotten here, and that's what I've got here, right? Of course, for this statement, I can choose not to even give a colon here, and I'm going to get the exact same output, which is Python is co. But I recommend that when you are writing this code, especially in the beginning, make sure you put 2 colons so that you can clearly demarcate what has been provided, what has not been provided. So always go something colon something colon something. Of course, start colon stop colon step. But even if you're not providing it, do provide the colon, right? So let's say what happens if I do not provide the stop, but again, I must provide at least one of the two. So let's say I say, okay, start on 2, go, and then say 2 colons, right? So now what's going to happen is that I'm going to start on 2. I have not provided a stop, I have not provided a step, which means I'm going to go from 2 all the way to the end, right? Because I'm using a step size of 1 here, I'm going to go all the way to the end, and in fact that's what happens. I get 0 1 2, which is t, so I get this entire string thon is cool. And again, if you think about it, this is quite logical. uh, this is quite logical because I started on 2 and I must go all the way to the end. Let's take one more example where give I give, let's say, 1 comma comma, so colon colon 2. So what's going to happen is that I'm starting on 1, I'm going to go all the way to the end, but in steps of 2, right? So if I did this, I get YHNI space OL. So what have I got here, right? I've got 2 because I've got Y because I started on 1. Remember 0 1. I got an H because step size was 2. So I got 1 3 5 7 9 and 11, 11 and 13. So 9 11 13, because my ending has not been provided. In fact, what I've gotten here is the odd, the letters which were on the odd numbered positions. Remember 1 3 5 are all odd numbers. I can just modify this a little bit. So for example, if I did x of say 0 colon colon 2, so again I'm starting on 0, going in steps of 2, but going all the way to the end because I've not provided step. So if I did this, I'm going to get PTO because 0 2 4 6 8 10 and 12. So that's what I'm getting, and that's exactly what I've gotten here, right? Now again, like many, the best way to learn this is by practice. Make sure you practice this a lot, okay? Because the more comfortable with you get with this, especially when you do not provide certain values, what happens? Try different strings. It's first of all, good practice. It's also fun to read this, and it's just quite interesting, in fact. Yeah. So take care. Thank you so much. Bye bye.